Hello and welcome to Let's Chat Death, Dying, Funerals and Grief with me, your host, Anna Bushell. Every month, I will be welcoming a special guest to chat all things death, dying, funerals and grief. Not the most light-hearted of topics, I know, but that's the whole point of this podcast. To shine a light on these often seen as taboo subjects with a view to hopefully dispel some fears and encourage others to be brave and have these conversations. For this episode, I'm very pleased to be welcoming my good friend, Lindsey Shepherd, a grief support coach. Welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Lindsey, I know all about you, but let's share who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay. So who am I? I'm just a regular person who has got lots of passions about life and people and music and stuff. I like that, really. I'll do a very, very short potted history of what I've done in my life, for work, if you like. I started off work as an accounts clerk for a few years. And then the majority of my working life has been in the voluntary and community sector. So I have either set up projects as part of a team to set up projects that are directly supporting vulnerable people, or I have been in organisations that support other voluntary and community sector organisations. So what I sort of belong to what we call infrastructure organisations that supported all the other organisations in the third sector, is another way of calling it. So I've set up befriending projects. I've set up a social car scheme. I've been head of leadership for a national organisation. I've just done loads of stuff. I've been a funder. So all of that voluntary community sector stuff it's been my life, really. And that has sort of been in line with my values as a person, very much about compassion for people and justice and fairness in life, and trying to support people to be the very best they can be, I guess.
Yeah.
It's my raison d'etre in life, really.
Yeah.
And alongside all of that, whilst I was working from the age of 30-ish, two things were happening. I was building and sort of exploring more, really, my spiritual side, which is a huge part of who I am, and personal development. And I see there's kind of like a fine line between the two. They have lots of crossovers, I think.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, I'm a healer. I'm a Reiki Sakine master. I'm a crystal healer. I'm a green ray Reiki level 3 practitioner. I do something called integral eye movement therapy.
Yes.
And what else? I'm a life coach and I'm an NLP practitioner. So the work that I'm currently doing, which is a grief support coach for my business, which is called Hocokah Wellbeing, I blend all of that to meet people where they're at within their grief journeys. And it's a real passion for me. And that sounds a really odd thing to say, that you're passionate about death and dying and bereavement. Yeah. But my passion lays with trying to support people through their journeys, if you like.
Yeah.
And I suppose the only other thing to add to that is that before I set up on my business, the final piece of voluntary community sector work that I did was I was supporting people on mental health wards and dementia wards as an independent advocate. I worked for a charity to provide independent advocacy. And I guess one of the things which was really predominant in that was that most of the people on those wards were suffering with unresolved grief.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially as grief is not just about the loss of a loved one, is it? You know, it can encompass all sorts of different things.
Loss is huge. I had my first loss at the age of 18 months old when my parents decided to split up. So I had no father figure in my life for quite a long time, in those sort of those years when you need both kind of male female kind of role models, if you like. So I had a missing father, if you like. So that was my very first loss. But But then there's other losses, as you say. It's not just about bereavement. There's losses of relationships. There's divorce. There's, people can have loss of identity, loss of oneself.
Yeah.
It's massive. Loss in itself is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what experience, I mean, because most of us have experienced bereavement and grief at some point. Have you actually experienced any in your life? In terms of the death of someone?
Yeah. Many, many, many.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sadly.
Mm.
I think the first death that I experienced was of my grandfather, my granddad, grandpa as we called him. That didn't actually impact me hugely, I have to say. He wasn't a particularly pleasant man.
Okay.
And so I think people were kind of relieved. It sounds bad, but
Yeah.
I was 11 at that time, but he wasn't a pleasant man. He was very unhappy, I think, with life, and it came out in his actions, the way he was. But I've had many bereavements, so lots of aunts and uncles and grandparents and things. But I've had three predominant ones in my life that really impacted hugely on me.
Yeah.
The first being at the age of 13, which was my grandma, and it was really strange, Anna, because I knew she was ill. She stayed with us for a couple of weeks before she was so poorly she had to go into hospital. And I knew she was going the very next day, and she asked to see me. So I went in as a 13-year-old girl, went to say my goodbyes. But you don't really understand what that actually means at that age, really.
Yeah.
But I knew I wasn't going to see her, but I didn't really quite understand the sort of the fullness of that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral
Oh,
because we were deemed too young at that point.
right.
So that was rather harsh for me because I really adored her and she was great fun. She was a really big part of my life and I loved her to bits. So I actually continued to carry on talking with her.
Okay.
And I don't so much now, although I know she's around. But yeah, that was a really big impact. And I carried on, as I say, carried on talking to her. Which in the grief world, actually, around grief theories, is actually called continuing bonds. How we
Okay. Right. So there's a word for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And then the other two was my mum, who I was incredibly close to, my best friend, my confidant, person who helped me make decisions and was just a huge person in my life. That was really, really desperately, it was just excruciatingly painful going through that grief. And then finally my stepdad, I've had, as I said, I've had lots of bereavements in between, but they're the three that I think have shaped me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And through that experience of, your own personal experience, do you think that's maybe why you've kind of leaned towards this line of work?
I think possibly, yeah. I mean, this is going to sound really odd to people, I'm sure, but up until the age of 29, 30, I could not speak about death.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
was exactly the same.
Were you?
Yeah, probably actually even more recent than that. So I'm 49 now. I would say 44, 40, 44.
Okay.
Probably. So
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about you. For what happened for me was that I just felt, I don't know, anybody who spoke to me about it, I just would say, no, don't talk to me about it. I turn away, hold my hands up, please don't talk to me about death. I don't want to talk about it. That's how it was really bad.
Yeah.
But then at the age of 30, 31, I started to explore my spiritual side, and that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
It completely did. Changed my life and in so many ways. But because somebody showed me or proved to me, in my mind at least, that life continues after the physical passing of a human being, that their spirit was still around and you could communicate with that person, with that spirit. That's what changed it for me.
Yeah.
Because I felt then, okay, so life continues. It's on a different dimension.
Yeah.
obviously this is a personal belief, and by the way,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't force this on any of my clients.
No, no.
But it is a personal belief, and
Mm,
because of that, it changed everything in terms of how I viewed death and
mm,
life after death, and just how it just made things easier. I think.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah,
No,
I
go
was
on.
going.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
It worked in exactly the same way for me as well. I mean, I've always had a sort of spiritual belief and always kind of felt there was death. When you look at the cycle of nature, it is a cycle, isn't it? And
yeah,
you kind of think, well, how come, we come from nature, we're a part of nature, how can ours end so dramatically and so suddenly? And
yeah,
it my belief too is that it doesn't, it carries on, that energy just transforms into
yeah,
something else.
absolutely.
um but I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think grief for me, actually, if I'm really honest, and this can be quite a difficult pill to swallow for some people, is that actually the pain that we're feeling is the things we as a person are gonna miss about them.
Exactly that.
So actually, it's the fact that I'm never going to be able to speak to my mum on the phone again. But
Yeah,
I can't, in terms of I can hear her voice, I'm going to miss that, hearing her voice. But then actually, if I really close my eyes and really get quiet, I can hear her voice again. It's not the same, or that physical touch, that and the scent, those very visceral senses that we have as a human.
yeah,
That's what that's what bereavement is.
yeah.
It's the grief over not having access to them anymore.
Absolutely, in the same way that we did. Yeah, it's for me. I'm exactly the same as that. For me, it's all about missing, and it's taken me a while to get to that point. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I, I sometimes channel spirit, and I had a channeling way back in September, I think it was last year, where spirit came through to me. I write a monthly blog, and I was writing a blog and it just wasn't gelling. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So I don't know what made me do it, but I just said, oh, come on then, Spirit. If you were writing this blog, what would you write about? And they turned around literally, and it came to me straight away, said, you know, loss isn't real. And I'm saying, what do
Yeah,
you mean loss isn't real? It's an illusion, because life does continue. And
yeah,
and it came out, and I did write a blog, and if anybody wants to see it, you can find it on my website. But it's and I think it's October's, well, maybe September's, October's, but anyway.
yeah.
But it actually, it just made me realize that actually it is about just missing those people. If they go into
Mm,
a different dimension, yes, it's that physical aspect of them that we miss, and we
mm,
miss having the banter and the laughter and the
mm,
camaraderie and the love and all of those physical things. And it's so hard. It really
mm.
is.
It's
However,
what they gave to us that
yes, that
is
we
what we
miss.
miss. Yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted you, Paul.
No, you're absolutely right. It's exactly that. It's
Mm,
just, yeah,
yeah.
interesting, very interesting.
So something we've talked about before is this, and I'm going to struggle saying it, aren't I? Anticipatory
Grief,
grief.
anticipatory grief. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
every time. You wouldn't think I'm a professional speaker for a living, would you? I try and avoid the big words.
I love that. That's funny.
Yeah, anticipatory grief.
Yeah,
I think you might be able to explain this a bit better than
yeah,
me.
absolutely. Well, okay. So this is one of my major passions actually, because
Right.
I've gone through anticipatory grief at least twice. And in some respects, I'm actually probably still going through it. I'm going through it with somebody right now. However, what it is basically is that it's grief that you experience before a loss. So if you have got a loved one who has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or somebody with dementia who are changing their personality through the dementia, or they're not quite the person that they used to be,
Yeah.
that is, you are anticipating that loss. And the grief that one can feel from that is extreme. And that is what I felt with my mum. and that's why it was so excruciatingly painful.
Right.
When I knew 2 years before she died that she was terminally ill, and for the first 6 months after her terminal diagnosis, I was in so much pain. I was
Mm.
beside myself because as I said before, we were incredibly close, and
Mm.
I reached the point where we'd speak at least once a day, if not 2 or 3 times, depending on what happens during the day. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous in some respects.
Yeah.
But because she was such a large part of my life, it was just the thought of her not being there was just ghastly to me.
Mm.
How on
Mm.
earth am I going to cope? And people struggle with this. Now, at the time that I was going through it, I didn't know that it was a thing. I had no
Mm.
clue that I was grieving. Nobody told me, you know,
Yeah.
nobody said, or, you know, but I did have a couple of people say, you know, why are you so upset? You know, you've got to make the most of her while she's here. And they're absolutely right. However,
Mm.
the difficulty was that I actually was in so much pain. It was really severe.
Mm.
And had I known that it was a thing, that it was a type of grief, I would have gained support. I definitely would have gained support from it.
Right.
The thing is that I had to muddle my way through.
Mm.
Because I've done masses of personal development through my coaching, my NLP, all of the work, and as a healer, you know, all of the things that I've been doing and still do. I was able to support myself by asking myself questions and journaling and
Right.
all sorts of different things to help.
Mm.
But it would have been very useful to have actually known that it was a type of grief that I was experiencing and to have gained the support I needed.
Yeah.
So now that's one of my major pieces of work, is that I really am trying to support people who are in that situation, who feel, because grief is isolating and very
Yeah.
lonely. And if you feel like you know, life is still continuing and the person
Mm.
you're going to lose is still there, you know, and you don't want to show that to them, and you're trying to put
Yeah.
this brave face on all the time. It's really hard.
Yeah. Incredibly draining and exhausting.
Totally. And you know,
Yeah.
you often are you're working, you've got a family, you're probably taking your loved one to appointments if you're lucky enough to live close to them. I was 3 hours away from my mum, so that was rare for me.
Right.
And one of my brothers, lives in America, so that was even,
Oh,
you know, even really hard for him.
yeah.
So yeah, it's something that I feel very strongly about. It's only, you know, latterly, or you know, since she passed 14 years ago. Well, no, 12 years ago. It's 14 years that she had the diagnosis.
Right.
Um, but it was only, you know, sort of in between these times that I've
Mm.
realised that it is actually a type of grief. It's a known type of grief, and you know, there's theories around it and what have you. And you know that for me, it's about working out how people can, what they need, if you like. So I always meet my clients where they're at,
Mm.
whether they're in a grief before their loss in the acute stages, or life after loss sort of 2 or 3 years down the line, but they still lost their identity and their purpose.
Yeah.
So there's a whole journey, if you like. But the anticipatory grief is kind of like, you know, I support people to know or to work out with them, because it's not my journey, it's their journey, which is,
Mm.
you know, really is unique. And it's important for me to work with them to find out what they need at any
Mm.
given time to support them through the last or final chapters of their loved one's life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when I sort of think back, and it was a good couple of decades, I would say, that I had anticipatory grief. And it was with my grandparents. And I was obviously, you know, a teenager, a young teen, and things. And there comes a point in when you're growing up, isn't there, where you suddenly become very much aware of death and dying and what that means. And I think I can't remember how old I was when that sort of happened, but I'd imagine early teens probably. And then you know, celebrating their birthdays once they got into their 70s and things. And when you're a teenager, 70 years old. You know, and you kind of think, oh, you know, their time, it's, you know, is gonna be less.
Yeah.
um my nan died when she was 93, and my granddad died when he was 101. You know,
Wow,
so
amazing
we,
longevity.
yes, so that's like
Gosh.
decades of anticipatory grief.
Yeah.
um and I sort of look back at that and I think, wow, how much aware I was of their what's the
Mortality.
yeah, their mortality. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a brain fog moment. Yeah. um but I think when you like know, when you have that diagnosis, when you, like you say, when you have someone who's got dementia, and you just, dementia is just
Oh, just
horrible.
ghastly. It's
Yeah,
ghastly. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really, really. I mean, my mum died from cancer, so hers was a different thing. But my dad, my stepdad, but my dad, he had got dementia. He'd got many, many other comorbidities, lots of different things wrong with him. He was poorly from the age of 55 with heart issues, so he had to have a triple heart bypass at the age of 55. He died at 91. You know,
Oh, wow.
I know. So it's just like, my goodness, but his dementia sort of started. We realised about 5 years before he passed that he'd got some mild cognitive impairment. Is what they called it, sort of like an umbrella kind of term for he's losing some memory. But it was impacting on him in many ways. He was being scammed out of money, people
Oh,
phoning him up.
yeah.
And we realised when I was there, he got one of these calls, and my ears pricked up when he's giving passwords out, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Suddenly
Mm,
realise what's happening, and yeah, but I mean that's another story. But the point is that his memory was deteriorating. He
mm,
didn't know what he was doing a lot of the time, and that was really tough because
yeah.
for several years, and because it happened during lockdown as well. With
Oh,
2020, he was getting bad, and I had to get my other brother who lives closer to him, to really step up
yeah.
and be able to support him, because by that time I was going down, because again 3 hours drive away, I was going down
Mm,
every third weekend to support him.
right.
But we got all the lasting powers of attorney in place. We made sure his will was up to date, everything, before he actually, we got there in time to do all of
Yeah.
those things. He'd got a will in place anyway, but those things are really important. And as
Mm,
an ex-advocate, I can't stress enough how important it is at any age to
yeah.
get a lasting power of attorney in place for your property and finance and your health and well-being, or health and
Yeah.
welfare. So for people who don't know, there are two, and it's really imperative to have those in place,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just so to support those people at times of need.
Yeah, very much so, especially in cases of dementia, because it can be so tricky, so
Yeah,
difficult.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, what in your work and in your experience, what do you find helps people who are grieving? What is there a particular thing that helps them the most, or?
I think it's giving them the time. I mean, it's, yeah, like I said, everybody's journey is unique. There is as unique as we are as individuals, but you'll have commonalities,
Yeah.
within grief. Um, so for me, it's giving them the time to speak their truth and actually
Mm,
be able to express exactly how they're feeling without any fear of judgment. Whatever
mm,
they're feeling is all valid, whether they're angry or whether they're desperately unhappy, or they're, whatever. I mean, you will have all of the grief theories out there which suggest about the commonalities of grief, if you like.
mm,
So I try to help people to kind of normalize, to respect them completely as to where they are and what they are feeling. However, to try and help them to understand that what they're feeling is quite normal as well.
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's where some sort of grief education comes into play.
Yes.
A little bit of grief education, so nothing too drastic, but just to support them to understand that actually they're not broken, they don't need to be fixed, that everything they're feeling is totally and utterly valid. So giving them
Yeah.
that time and space to kind of metaphorically be held, And they need that. They need to be able to have that outlet to just offload,
Yeah.
whether that's anticipatory grief or any kind of grief, actually, and to have a space to talk about their loved one as well. So as I said to you before, I blend every part of my experience and skill set. So I use all of my coaching techniques. I'll use various tools from my NLP box, my toolkit. There's a spiritual wisdom happening all the time, because I can't separate myself from my spiritual aspect. The spirit comes through me in my words all the time. I don't give messages and stuff like that. It's not about that. It's about spirit, if you like, coming through me to channel the wisdom. But it's predominantly giving them that space and coping techniques. People need coping strategies. They don't know how to regulate their nervous system.
Yeah.
Because grief hits us not just emotionally and mentally, but it also hits us physically, and it's often shocking, and the body absorbs the shock.
Yeah.
So it's about working out how to, whether that's through using crystals. I have crystal armor, as I call it. So this, and using color, sound, crystals, whatever supports a person to actually cope, as well as having that listening ear and providing them with lots of different techniques.
It's so important, isn't it, to be able to have that person that you can offload on without judgment. And also, it's not always easy to offload to those that are around us, because we don't necessarily want them to worry about us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes people find it hard, because, I mean, this is going to sound, I don't know if it's going to sound awful or not, but I find society are very judgmental about other people's grief. And it's one of my biggest bugbears, I suppose. I try very hard to try and sort of say to people, unless you've had grief, unless you've experienced grief yourself, please don't judge others for how they grieve. We judge people if they don't show enough emotion, or they obviously don't care, or we judge them if they show too much emotion, or we judge them if they grieve for too long, or too soon. So however a person grieves, for other people looking in, they can't do it right.
You can't please everyone all of the time, even in grief.
Exactly that. So I think as a society we are very judgmental of other people's grief, and I know I was talking to somebody the other day where we were talking just about that, and she turned around and said, 3 months after her mother passed, a colleague or whoever, somebody said, have you got over that yet? I was like, oh, the red flag. How do you don't get over grief? You manage grief, you work through grief, but you never get over the loss of somebody. You come to terms with it. So for me, it's about yes, the brain can understand logically that somebody has passed, is not there any longer, but emotionally accepting that takes loads of time. And
it's part of our humanness. It's what makes us human, and there are animals
absolutely
that do the same as well, that grieve when they lose someone, when they lose someone in their pride,
or the pack, or
family pack. It's
absolutely.
It is a shame, really, and I think it is one of the reasons why we are here today talking about it, isn't it? Exactly. For that exact reason, really.
For sure, absolutely. It's a funny one. I just I find it really hard when people do sort of say, "Oh, you over something." I mean, I've had experiences where, if I go back to my mum, people that were close to her during her lifetime, who I've continued to stay in touch with, and sort of after a year after her passing, I bring her up when I saw them and see the raised eyebrows, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm not meant to be saying anything about her anymore then. You know,
Yeah,
that's hard, you know, because
yeah.
I just find that really odd. You
Always
know,
say their name.
oh,
Yeah,
oh, absolutely, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. Oh, well, as always, I could chat all day long about this with you. Um, my fellow cheerleader for all
oh,
things
absolutely,
death, dying, funerals, and grief.
absolutely, absolutely,
I think, I say that laughing, um, but it is so important to be able to have these discussions
for
and
sure.
also, laugh about it because I don't know why I laugh about it actually. I think I laugh because for some people they just can't, it's not something that they can talk about. And I just think, well, this isn't what I laugh about, but I just think, grief and death and dying are all part of our human nature,
Yeah,
and when I walk out of sorry, at the end of a funeral service, when everybody's walked out of the chapel, the one thing that I hear the most is people laughing,
yeah,
and it's that laughter is a bit of a relief. And I think if we can give the gravitas to the deepness of it and have those
yeah,
conversations, but also be aware that we might be a bit quirky because we like to have those conversations, then
absolutely.
so be it. Yeah.
Absolutely, but I think the laughter is kind of getting rid of that nervous tension, isn't it? It's kind of like,
Yeah,
as
it
you
is a
say, a
release.
release and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a few things that I think people, and again, this might sound a bit odd, but it's about keeping perspective. So the one thing that we know, as soon as we're born, we're all terminal, actually,
Yeah.
because we all know that we are going to pass, that this body is going to pass. Our spirit will go on, in my belief. This spirit will continue and its journey in a different dimension, but this physical body will die at some point. The
Yeah.
thing that people get frightened of is when and how, and are they going to be
Mm,
in pain? And I get that, because I don't
yeah.
know who wants to be in pain. Nobody
Yeah.
does, so
Mm,
I understand that wholeheartedly, and I feel the same. That's the same for me
mm,
too. It's like, oh gosh, I pray, I hope that pray that my passing will be a peaceful one,
yeah.
because actually at the end of the day, that's what we want for everybody. And
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, it isn't like that, is it? But yeah, so it's kind of keeping perspective, I think, and yeah, and to also remember that grief is actually the other side of the coin of, we got a coin, love on one side and grief on the other. We grieve as much as we loved the person that in our
Yes.
life. I mentioned at the beginning of this that it didn't have a massive impact on me when my grandfather passed, because didn't really like him very much in this lifetime, if
Mm,
I'm honest.
yeah.
He wasn't a pleasant man. So the
Yeah.
impact on me was less, and therefore my grief was less. But in comparison, my grandma, my mum, my dad, the grief was huge because I loved them immensely. So it's
Yeah.
kind of weighing all of that up, isn't it? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
it's
the greater the love, the
the
greater the
greater the
grief.
grief,
Yeah.
exactly, the greater the missing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
absolutely. Yeah. So
So it's been wonderful to chat with you, and it's good to know that there's people like you out there that
thank you.
are available for everyone and anyone, regardless of their situation. It's
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
a wonderful thing that you do, and the fact that you're so passionate about it just makes all the difference.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting to you as ever. And as you say, we could carry on talking for a
Yeah,
long, long time. But yeah,
we could.
uh,
Yeah.
thank you for having
Um,
me.
yeah, thank you, Lindsey. It's been a real honour to chat with you, and thank you for your time and your fabulous insights as well.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Bushell, and you have been watching Let's Chat Death, Dying, Funerals, and Grief. Until next time, take care and see you soon.